Support for Donnybrook is provided in part by Design Air Heating and Cooling.
Seems fair to me. Well, if you don't know what fair is, you can't make it. That's like any reason.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.
Hey, thanks for joining us for another edition of Donnybrook. It's great to have you with us. Boy, do we have a lot to talk about this week. So, sit back, get relaxed, and let's meet the panelists, starting with the media veteran herself, Wendy Wiese, who gets inducted into the St. Louis Media History Hall of Fame, April 23rd. That's next Wednesday. It is. Go to stlmediahistory.org for your tickets. Bill McClellan from your St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Also from the Post, Mr. Joe Holleman. And from the St. Louis American, we welcome Alvin Reid. Wendy Wiese, I thought it was rather unusual when the St. Louis County Council gave $3.2 million to Rustic Roots Sanctuary this week. It's a farm in Spanish Lake that helps farmers learn skills, and it's also designed to decrease hunger in the area. But the award was given without any competitive bidding. And this week, at the first hearing on it, when the board, the council, unanimously voted to give $3.2 million to this farming organization, someone from Operation Food Search got up there and said, hey, nothing against farmers, but shouldn't we have competitive bidding? What do you think?
I think that Operation Food Search, to me, and we can get into that, that seems like an apples and oranges kind of situation. I'm sure that there are a lot of people out there who are of different minds when it comes to $3.2 million. But I was really moved by what Shalonda Webb said and how forgotten people feel when it comes to fresh food and fresh fruits and vegetables and that kind of thing, and how that creates a generational expectation when it comes to health and just the whole thing. And it started during the pandemic. Right before the pandemic, there was $5 million put aside for whatever reason. Obviously, everything was canceled during the pandemic, but that didn't come to fruition. I'm excited about it, and I'm certainly excited for the people who will be helped by it.
I think I really do like Rustic Roots. We've done several stories on it. Tremendous idea. How about we put $3.2 million to building a sustainable grocery store in those neighborhoods? Because I don't think that we're raising generations of farmers. I think, it's something to do. It's a great idea, but this is going to change how people's lifestyles are and all that. I've never really kind of bought into that. Also, I'm not gonna question anyone's motive, but I'm gonna question motive here. I think the county council got it handed to them with Prop B, and everybody's trying to play nice right now. And one way to do that would be to support this nonprofit organization in North County. So, and then one last thing: the next time some no-bid contract goes to somebody for $3.2 million, I don't want to hear either side hollering or screaming about it, because you did it for this project. So if it happens for somebody else, one that you don't necessarily agree with, then I don't want to hear it.
I thought it was all good, and
I'm just evil.
And the fact that we're not going to have generations of farmers. It seems to me like if they grow the food and people have the opportunity to go and buy fresh food, because this is a so-called food desert, I thought this is a good thing to try.
I think it's a great one-time, shouldn't say great, good, one-time allocation of money. I don't have a problem, and every elected official there voted for it, so clearly they didn't have any problems. What I hope it doesn't become is some recurring funding that every year we're going to have to put out money and put out money and put out money. If they think that Rustic Roots can change the way people view food, if it teaches some people to garden, I think that's great. I don't think it's landmark legislation. I just don't find it bad.
Guys, I think you're $42 million in the hole, and the county is. And to have a non-competitive bid, not to solicit other bids, not to identify the problem numerically and say, okay, there's X number of people, we got to feed these, and we want to see, here are the results we want to see. it just seems less than professional. And I also think that when Shalonda Webb at the county council meeting said, hey, when your projects come up in your districts, whether it's a septic tank or a volleyball court, I always vote for it without batting an eye. So don't start crossing the T's and dotting the I's here. I'm sorry, I want my county council member to cross the T and dot the I, to do due diligence.
She hasn't been giving Sam Page a lot of leniency here these days. Where is all that good-hearted stuff coming when they're down there battling every week?
She's talking about the county council members.
Well, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
And
All
you're
right,
right.
but
You're
speaking of
right.
Sam-
Quid pro quo is a completely new concept in governing.
Oh,
right?
there you go.
Yeah.
And I saw what you did with the apples and oranges.
Okay. Hey, speaking of Sam Page, he was at the council meeting for a while, and the county executive had this to say.
Historically, burying the hatchet meant literally that. Those who had been involved in some sort of conflict or disagreement would agree to take their hatchets home and bury them. It's a way to hit the reset button and move forward to get the work done. So after the meeting tonight, each of you will get a rubber hatchet like the one I have here today. See, it's not real. Tonight, I'll bury this one in my yard, and I hope each of you will take home the one that I provided you and do the same.
You've seen a lot of politicians through the years. How effective was this? What?
Okay. I literally, that was the first time I saw that.
Right.
Okay. So I had higher hopes of the presentation, but I hear him. And that kind of goes to what I say, like, we've got to do better county council, county government. And now that the Prop B specter is off of the table, I'm with Sam Page. Bury the hatchet. Good job, Sam.
Next to the statue of St. Joe in the backyard, if you're trying to sell your home.
It was a little frightening, though. If I'd been there and hadn't really been listening, and all of a sudden
hit the deck.
he pulls a hatchet
Yeah.
out, I'd.
You were triggered.
I was triggered, but I thought it was all a nice gesture and good.
And that's what happens when you look out at a council and find that 6 of the 7 don't like you.
Right.
Is, hey, let's make peace.
Yeah, hey.
Actually, the 7th was remote,
Oh, okay.
so she wasn't there.
I
Lisa
wonder-
Clancy.
Wonder if she's already got her hatchet in the mail, or.
Well, she
How do
probably did.
You know what?
Wendy,
He was trying.
He was trying.
he's trying. He's working it.
trying.
He's working it.
He's trying.
Wendy, I want to ask you about sick leave. Last November, Proposition A, I think it was, 57% of Missourians voted to extend the sick leave benefits for workers in the state. If you work 30 hours, you get 1 hour of paid sick leave. So if you work about 6 40-hour weeks, you get an entire week of sick leave, or an entire day paid for free. What do you think about this? The legislature now wants to repeal this law.
On the one hand, I sound like Tevye, right? And Fiddler on the Roof. On the one hand, I feel like it is going to really create a burden for some of these smaller businesses who have been quoted in the papers, the publications, as saying they're going to have to pass along the cost to the consumer. On the other hand, as a state that's trying desperately to turn a corner with, a lot of different things, image for starters, I think this does make us appealing to a certain segment of the business world. So I kind of see both sides on this one.
Of course, people deserve sick leave. If you're working 30 hours a week, the idea of accumulating sick time, I think is perfectly acceptable. And I think the thing that people don't understand is it doesn't prevent a company from putting restrictions on sick leave. People go, they just use that as vacation. Not if you enforce your sick leave policy correctly, so that people aren't just going, oh, I got the flu, I'm not going to, come up with a sick leave policy. And so that people are using it to actually be sick, if that's what you're worried about.
But what about the legislature repealing it? Just 4 months, 5 months after 57% of the voters decided to approve it?
Well, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that's a mistake on the part of the legislature. I mean, this was overwhelmingly approved, and it's really hard to make an argument against a sick person being able to stay home. I mean, you want them to stay home.
Exactly.
I just don't see the argument
If we
on
learned
the other
anything
side at
during
all.
COVID, right? I mean, I think, we wanted people to stay home.
It's like people who send their sick kids to school.
Yep.
But don't businesses who say, look, we know how difficult it is to get labor. In many cases, we are already providing it. What we have objections with is that the electorate, which hasn't cashed in its 401k to fund the business, hasn't taken a risk, is telling us what benefits we as small business owners have to give the employees.
Well, okay, we tell businesses a lot of things. I mean, we tell them, like, don't put ammonia in the river, but so there are things that we could stand up and say, like, we don't want you to do. And with this one, not to say that people mean less, but this is a state that we voted to not have puppy mills, and they said, no, you want puppy mills. Puppy mills are fine. So they have no, they don't care. They'll change. They're trying to change the vote on, reproductive rights. They're trying to change other votes right now. And I do think it's interesting. It has created I don't want to call it a political atmosphere, but what labor is doing is targeting the 10 Republican districts that passed this. So you can now, this is an issue that you could go and say, like, hey, Republican folks, this leadership that you keep voting for keeps doing these things. You might want to start examining.
Well, as a matter of fact, the state takeover of the police department in the city of St. Louis is, I guess, a violation of what the voters wanted, 10 years ago, something like that, Joe. Hey, let me ask you, Joe Holleman, as we move forward, about your column this week on senior senator from the state of Missouri, Josh Hawley, who seems to have expedited the cleanup schedule for the radiation at Coldwater Creek. And Dawn Chapman, who has been a longtime advocate for those who have suffered injuries that are radiation related, said, I don't know why the progressives don't give Josh Hawley any credit. What are your feelings on this?
Well, I think, first of all, the story that I wrote had to be about knocking 2 years off a timeline of when cleanup could start at Westlake and Coldwater Creek. It's an issue that Josh Hawley has been vocal and visible on for the last several years, has tried to get legislation passed, has through the Senate to get Missouri and New Mexico included in a compensation bill. It goes to the House, it dies. He fought with a fellow Republican, Ann Wagner, over the very issue. He's taken Dawn Chapman, so he has put it as one of those issues that he's not going to give up on. So what my column simply recognized that in the political arena, he scored a victory in getting the federal government at a time when they're halting projects. And everybody doesn't know, can we do this, can we do that? They've actually seemed to have sped up the process. And so I believe that it was a political victory. It showed he was going to stay with the issue as opposed to, I introduce a bill and then leave. So,
but I'm not, my point is, I'm not sure John Chapman is correct that progressives won't give Hawley a break, because even on this panel, Ray Hartman, when he was one of our regular panelists and a founder, he gave Hawley credit on this matter. And I think I mentioned once before on this program that I was at WashU once looking at a documentary on the subject, and when Hawley's image was on the screen, the entire audience applauded for him, and I don't think WashU was full of too many conservatives.
I'm not sure that Ray identifies as a progressive right off the
I think he is,
right,
but he's not woke.
He's not.
He doesn't identify as woke, but I think he's a progressive.
I thought Dawn Chapman, the reason I included the quote is I think she speaks to a case, and she was also talking about the hundreds upon hundreds of comments that go on the Facebook page and the website from others. Josh Hawley, for reasons good or bad, whatever you want to, is a kind of person who elicits a reaction. And there are people who simply don't like him. And I think that there's a little bit of a problem making everything meld in the mind of some progressives. Is I'd love to praise this, but gosh, is that like praising Josh Hawley? And I can't do that. And I think that's what she was addressing.
Yeah.
I will. It's like, I want these people to get this money and take care of this problem because it's going on along. I'll give Josh Hawley credit for that. But I'm also giving credit to Michael Corleone giving a big donation to have his nephew, christened in the cathedral while he's whacking 5 dudes and then his brother-in-law. I just don't trust Josh Hawley. And I think it's about for political hay, and so he could carry on his mission, which I don't agree with.
I don't trust him either, but on this issue, these are his constituents. They deserve this, and they're getting it thanks to Josh Hawley. It's hard not to say, good job, Josh Hawley.
And I don't disagree with the fact about political hay. But I believe that just about everything any politician does is to make a little political hay. They're not out there going, let me pass this bill to help my constituents, but don't tell anybody I did it.
Yep.
It's all about politics to a politician.
Senator Chester Milquetoast, those are not the people who make careers and who stick around. So I do think that he is effective in this way. And I think when he brought the EPA chief here to St. Louis for the tour, the guy was clearly visibly moved by that. Shaving 2 years off, not a bad thing.
If the EPA chief does that and he's in the Trump cabinet, does Donald Trump get some credit here?
Well, sure. I mean,
Okay, just
why
for the
not?
record.
I don't know.
Why not?
Well, I mean, unless we've got
You want to go that far?
unless we got to go with the possibility that the politicians are either always right or always wrong.
I think what we are seeing with the senior senator is he's going on a lot of triangulation issues. He wants to fix the U.S. postal system. He wants to lower your car repair bills. There's a few of these other, he's getting a lot of attention for doing that. And this week in the Washington Post, he also said he hopes that you can deduct your mortgages off your payroll tax, and that will appeal to some people. I think he's coming up with a lot of ideas to try and separate himself from anything that's going on in the White House right now.
Well, I agree with that, but I'm sorry. I still see those people rampaging the Capitol and Josh Hawley running out the back.
Well, and
that will never get those images
Okay,
out
only
of my
because of the
mind.
interest of time. We got to move along. To you, Bill McClellan, KDHX. It's been in bankruptcy court. There's a group of business owners and volunteers who would like control of it. Then there is a Christian operation that's out of town that wants to turn it into a Christian radio station. And now we find that the owners of Joy 99.1, another Christian station, are increasing their bid to buy KDHX. Your analysis here.
Well, I don't know what the judge is going to decide, but clearly if I was the king, you have a high-powered entertainment attorney in Gary Pearson, and you have a bunch of old hippies who love the music and founded the station over here who want to keep it a community radio station, and Pearson who wants to sell it. Obviously, I'm on the side of the old hippies, and Sarah Fenske had a very interesting story about how Mayor Shamel tried to be an intermediary and set up things with John Parker and Stephen Smith, a couple, small businessmen who are trying to, who say that this is important to have a station that promotes local music and gets the word out on local events. And they thought they had a deal, but Gary Pearson thought that they didn't apologize to him because they helped lead the boycott. So that's it for community radio. I think it's shameful what those guys are doing. And by guys, I mean Pearson and Joan Bray and Kelly Wells.
And I think, at some point, cooler heads, and I know, Steve, and we're friends. So I'm siding with him and with John. John was one of the people that, withdrew, some of his support for the station when things were going down the way it was. I don't think that that's like I say, you fight how you can. This is sad for St. Louis, and I wish somebody out there in St. Louis who could end this, with the right amount of money would step forward and do that. To protect the station, not to make a profit and not to pay this person off or whatever, just to keep the thing on the air the way it is. Not the way it is, because now they're playing Christian music right now.
Alvin, let me ask you, speaking of media, turns out another Washington Post story that Ed Martin, the former chair of the GOP in Missouri, right?
Right.
He appeared on Russian state media 150 times. Before he was nominated to be the U.S. Attorney in Washington, D.C. And he didn't disclose it because when he was nominated, he was supposed to disclose all his media appearances. He disclosed some, but not that. He also won't say whether he was paid or not. But given that prosecutor oversees some prosecutions with national security and foreign relations connections, isn't that alone a reason that he should be withdrawn as U.S. Attorney in Washington, D.C.?
Well, that, and he made an appearance on this show, too, so that should...
Did he
should
really?
be a
Yeah, he
strike.
was on.
Was he really?
I think he has at least once.
Okay. Well, that settles that.
Strike
He's
three.
toast now.
Right. I think he would have been. I think he would have been nominated regardless. But the fact that he did not disclose that, knowing that he probably would have been nominated anyway, that's bothersome to me. And then also, I know you're not supposed to flip the script, but if someone in a Democratic administration had been on Russian TV 150 times, Ed Martin would have something totally different to say.
Flip that script.
Yeah.
And he was defending Russia, and he was saying there's no buildup on the Ukrainian border. That's what he said on Russian State. Well, there was buildup, and they invaded the next week.
Well, I think what it proves most of all is the Russian people's ability to withstand hardship and pain to have Ed Martin on television for 150 times. I think that basically most people don't believe, for a variety of reasons, that Ed Martin should be confirmed, like the 104 farmer prosecutors who wrote and said this man has no business being on there. I mean, so whatever reasons you can find, great.
Yeah, in any question about whether or not he was paid ends it for me. And the fact that he did not disclose it.
Well, I don't agree with that. I think that this is a free speech thing. If he's an American citizen and he wants to go on Russian TV, I mean, and as far as Ukraine, I mean, the president of the United States said they shouldn't have started the war. So, I mean, to blame poor Ed Martin for all this, I'd say no.
And I am disturbed that you'd think that people should appear on television and not get money.
Oh, no. Is that what I inferred? I'm so sorry.
Sort of what I heard.
I'm just like, wait.
I shut everything down after
no.
that.
Well, I was like, why aren't the Russians calling me? Right? I'd probably have a nice little variety show in Moscow.
Bill McClellan, I want to ask you about our other senator, the junior senator, Eric Schmitt, has offered a bill that will make Easter Monday a federal holiday. Actually, Easter itself would be the holiday, but because it always, of course, falls on Sunday, a weekend, people would be able to take Monday off. That's federal workers anyway. Are you in favor of that?
No, I think this is a solution looking for a problem. I mean, I read his comments that, families should get together on Easter, have the opportunity to. My family's always had the opportunity to. We don't need the government to tell us. Turkey on Christmas, ham on Easter, and I also just didn't like his idea that 3/4 of this country is Christian and it's a Christian country. The Republicans are always saying the Democrats play identity politics, and this is identity politics in a wrong way, saying 3/4 of the country is Christian. I just don't like it at all.
So you are the Reverend McClellan of the Church of the Second Chance, but you don't need a Monday. You don't need the holiday.
Well, there's a lot of Mondays, like this Monday after Super Bowl could be a holiday just because people tend to drink on Super Bowl Sunday. But, Easter's not a big day for drinking. I mean, you don't say, oh, man, Easter, we're going to hang on that. Well, that's what I think anyway.
Well, I generally speaking, I love the idea of holidays. The more holidays, the better.
Sure.
This one I don't think has a chance because it is so tied to religion. And the other thing is if you really want that day off, when it comes time to put in your vacation time at the beginning of the year, for people who do that, request the Monday after Easter.
Yeah,
take a vacation day.
Or Missouri sick day.
There you go.
There you go, or Missouri sick day.
There you go.
Right. It's pandering for votes. And I really hate when people pander for votes in the name of religion.
But they're going to remember those voters.
As opposed to pandering to votes for other reasons. I get that.
No, I'm serious. No, I really do. Like, you can pander for votes. Like you say, all politicians do it. I get that. But let's not pander for votes through religion and that whole 3/4 is Christians. And 3/4 of that 3/4 ain't been in the church probably in 20 years.
Well, and see, this is the same way I've always felt about these executive orders. I think the people who are going to be moved and really take stock in that and file that away come election day, they don't follow up on the fact that it was struck down. It's the thought that counts in politics so often, and that's what I think is going to happen here, like you said, Bill.
Is it also possible Schmitt is maybe like Hawley? My theory is he wants to distance himself from the White House and its tariffs and the stock market that's gone down and the prices that don't seem to be going down, and so he's coming up with something some triangulation. Hey, what can I come up with that might not be too controversial that'll get me some press attention?
But this one doesn't work though, because this is that whole kind of. I'm not saying he's a white nationalist, but this kind of falls into
Christian
that
nationalist, like Hawley always says.
I think it was a culture war shot.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
You know,
Exactly.
part of the culture wars. Both sides do it.
That's right.
Throw out something, you know, it's aimed at their crowd.
That's right.
And maybe don't think it's really got a good chance of passing, but they'll go, well, they tried. And politicians have been doing that forever.
All right. Hey, that's enough out of you, Joe. We're going to go to the old mailbag and see what the viewers had to say about last week's show and the week before. Keisha and Alan Orban of Hazelwood wrote, driving 44 West can be very entertaining when you see a billboard for the Uranus Fudge Factory. We also heard from Douglas Beck of South St. Louis. I can't believe everyone was so nonchalant about the billboards in Missouri. Driving through other states like Kentucky and Virginia is a completely and more enjoyable experience. Eric McDougall of Wildwood, thank you for your letter, which said, maybe I missed the memo. Why do we switch to YouTube for last call? And Barbara Wells of Chesterfield chimed in, it was so cute when Sarah Fensky, the youngest cast member, laughed at the staff giving her a birthday cake. She said she didn't want to feel older. You can write us care of 9 PBS, 3655 Olive Street, 63108. Don't forget those emails, and on social media, use hashtag DonnybrookSTL. Call the 9 line, won't you, at 314-512-9094, and listen to us on your favorite podcast source. Don't forget, our big fundraiser is May 8th. We call it Donny Bash, and the last day to buy tickets is April 25th. Go to 9pbs.org. It's a lot of fun, and we need the money. Hey, on the 9PBS YouTube channel, we have what we call Last Call, because these are the topics we didn't get to in the first 28 or so minutes, and we hope you tune in. This week, we'll be taking a look at whether or not it makes sense to have No Mow April, and the first speech by the now Mayor, Kara Spencer. She was inaugurated this week as the mayor of the city of St. Louis. But that's it for the regular portion. Thanks so much for joining us, and we hope you watch the 9PBS
Happy birthday,
YouTube channel.
Sarah.
Oh yeah, happy
Yeah.
birthday, Sarah. It's today. See ya. See you next week.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.